changed since all this stuff occurred to me. It's been Sunday. I'm used to getting up on Sunday morning and going to church, and I've done that my whole life, and there's kind of a gap in there where we weren't doing that, and so we've had to adjust to those things. Let me share this with you so that you understand exactly what's going on. If we had not had COVID-19, and if we had had church the following Sunday, I would have preached from John chapter 14. Now, I'm going to preach from John chapter 14, and I'm telling you this to start with because I want you to watch how God does what God does. He's out there all by himself. He's got this thing figured out to an nth degree. I mean, it's just amazing in terms of what's happened. If you think about John chapter 14 and what leads up to it, Jesus is trying to prepare his disciples, his followers, for one of the greatest times of transition they'd ever lived through. They didn't get it, so to speak, or whatever. You have to believe. That's really what he was trying to get across, is that you have to understand this if you don't understand anything else. You have to believe. And he says, listen, I'm going to the cross. I'm going to die on the cross. Things are going to happen for the next several days, several months, several years, for the rest of history that will all come back to this one event. Those of us that are here this morning will not live long enough, even the little bitty ones probably won't live long enough to forget what happened in the last few months here in our country and across the world. This is a life-changing experience. And so when it comes down to it, it really comes down to the fact that you have to believe. You have to understand that you have to believe. But you also have to believe that you don't have to understand. Now somebody said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. No, it's not when you think about it long enough. People ask me all the time, why this, why this? And that's because he's God. And they said, well, I need it to make sense. I said, it will one day. Maybe not today, maybe not next year, maybe not 10 years from now, but one day it will make sense. I have saw things come out of this that were transitional in people's lives. The little road that I live on over there, as a general rule, in the afternoons, you don't see anybody on that road I live on. For the last several months, and since this thing started, every afternoon, you'll see these families just walking up and down the road. There are men who have held their wives' hands in the last few weeks and have held their wives' hands in the last 10 years. Y'all don't look around me. Look at me. We go. Next week's Father's Day. But what I'm saying is there are certain things. I have had people call me or stop me in the roads, or whatever, want me to pray with them. That don't normally happen. I'm just telling you that's unusual. And so when we think about this, Jesus is trying to get this message across to his disciples. He's trying to help them to get it all figured out, so to speak. And he begins in John chapter 14 with this statement, let not your heart be troubled. How can your heart not be troubled? My Lord, Jesus, what you're saying is terrible. It's unheard of. It's unprecedented. You're sitting here explaining to us that they're going to come get you, they're going to beat you, they're going to drive nails in your hands, they're going to hang you up on a cross, and we're not supposed to be troubled? Let not your heart be troubled. Some of y'all were raised with daddy's kind of like my daddy. My daddy would whip you and tell you better not cry. And I would say to him, if you quit whipping me, I'd quit crying. The two things, they'll coincide. I guarantee you, every time it's going to work together. And so what we're talking about here, what I want you to think about and understand is Jesus is talking about stress management. Now, we've been dealing with stress in the last while and trying to manage it. Should we tell you what the worst thing you can do is? Nothing. You sit around and do nothing. And I guarantee you, your mind's going to get messed up, your body's going to get messed. Do something. If you don't do that, count your toes, or whatever you can think of. Get out and stir around. Walk up and down the road and hold your wife's hand. Do all of those things the way that you ought to be doing them anyway. But Jesus starts there in chapter 14, verse 1. He says, let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe in me also. Trust. Make the connection. The greatest connection and the greatest challenge they were trying to figure out was how can Jesus really be God? How can God really be Jesus? And unless you believe that So you say, well, I don't understand. I just told you you didn't have to understand. I told you you had to believe. And then he goes into what I think some of the greatest stuff in all the Bible. I'm just telling you this, I just like what he says here. He says in verse 2, in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. Now, he's bragging on his Father. Now, one thing I can promise you can do, you brag on Jesus all you want to. You brag on God all you want to. That's what we did just a second or two ago. We praised Him. We raised praises to Him and how great and what wonderful and what a beautiful God He is. And He's saying in my Father's house. And He's saying this for several reasons, but one of the main reasons is that He wants them to understand, I'm fixing to go there. I'm going back home. I'm going to this place. And He says there's many of them. Now, how many mansions does a man need? In my mind, he only needs one. Now, I know we got people, and I know y'all watch television, you know, and some of these athletes has got the summer home, and the winter home, and the spring home, and the fall home, and if I can just get one of them paid for, I'm going to be so excited. I'm just telling y'all, it's going to be a different thing. But what he's saying is, there is an abundance. And then he says this, I go to prepare a place for you. I go to the cross to prepare a place for you. I go to the cross to prepare a way for you. To think that He's working for me, that He's preparing for me, that He's looking forward to me. I've spent part of the last few days at hospice over there in Statesboro with a fellow whose funeral is tonight. And I know y'all think that's a strange thing, but that's just the way they do it. They have night funerals, and I'm kind of thinking it's the way to go. Especially in the summertime, you know, or whatever. Have it at night, you know, when it's cool, and when folks, you know, don't have to take off at work and all that sort of stuff there. But one of the main things over at the hospice thing, if you've ever been there very much, is they're preparing people. They're setting things up, you know. They're helping the family, you know, get ready for what's fixing to happen. They help the patient, you know, if he's of a mind, to get ready for what's fixing to happen. And a lot of what they're trying to do and what they're hoping to do is this is a person who has a relationship with Christ. If this person has a relationship with Christ, then we know that to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord. To be present with the Lord is the fact that you just beat the COVID-19, all right? It's the fact that you took care of everything else. It's the fact that you finally got to a place that's actually yours. It's paid for. But he said, in order for me to do this, there's got to be some things that take place. And one of those things, the main thing, the central thing was, there was some suffering. But there was some pain. Somebody tried to tell me one time that when Jesus was on the cross, He was so much God that it didn't hurt. It hurt. He hurt as bad as anybody hurt. Driving nails in your hands. Can you imagine? I accidentally put a staple in my finger one time, and I thought that was pretty bad. But He said, I go to prepare a place for you. Now, I want you to understand what He said. He said, for you, which is a singular thing. It tells us a specific thing. And the other thing is, He says, I'm preparing a bypass, a way for you to get there. He says in verse 3, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. He's assuring them is a lot of what He's doing, but He's also telling them that we got something to look forward to. I think heaven's going to be just showing up all right. Now, everybody's got their own concept of heaven in this church. I'm sure you know. Our young people kind of think, you know, when we get to heaven, we're all going to wear white gowns, you know, we're going to be able to fly. I'd love to be able to fly. Now, that's just something about flying, you know. I've tried it a few times, you know, and it has never worked, you know. I almost killed myself one time, and I was at my grandma Wall's house. I used to spend the night with them, you know, the night before we picked the back at their house. That way I could be in the field about 5 o'clock, you know, before the rest of them got there. But my granddaddy Wall was a sport. I mean, he was a character. He just enjoyed life. And he slept in long-handle underwear. Y'all don't even know what long-handle underwear is, but that's what he slept in. And he convinced me that if I would put on that long-handle underwear and get up on the roof of the house and do it just right, you know, I'd be like a flying squirrel, you know, coming through the air. He just knew I could do it, you know, and we practiced. I ain't couldn't fool with y'all. We practiced, you know, holding it out them tights, you know, where I looked like a mini parachute. And praise the Lord, I was up on the roof, and it was a tin roof, and my grandmama heard me running around on the roof, you know, I was getting up to speed. She come out and she said, "What are you stop? What are you doing?" I said, "I'm fixing to fly." She said, "You fixing to break your stupid neck. Get out." I said, "But Mama Bill, I know I can do it." She says, "Not as much as I know you can't do it." So I got out and I missed that flying experience, but I want you to think about heaven, and the simple fact is we can't really think about heaven. I don't believe my heaven and Joshua's is going to be the same. I don't believe mine and Al's is going to be the same. I don't believe anybody's is going to be the same because of this. He said, "I go to prepare a place for you." You is a very specific thing. Me and Jesus are going to hang out. Me and Jesus are going to have a big time. Me and Jesus are going to catch hogs, and every time we're going to catch one bigger than the one we caught the last time. And we're going to catch him in the roads. You ain't going to have to run through the briars in the swamp. We're going to catch him right there in the road. Somebody said, "Oh, you just out there too far. You can't do that." Let me tell you what it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. It says, "Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, neither has entered into the hearts of men the things that God has prepared for those who love Him." What he says is you do not have the capability or the imagination that is required to get anywhere close to what He's doing. So who is He preparing for? Those who are prepared for Him. Somebody trying to tell me everybody goes to heaven. I don't believe that. The Bible says most people go to hell. It uses an analogy that many there be and few there be, and the few is the heaven and many is the hell. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am there ye may be also. Well, in verse 4 he says, "And whether I go, ye know, and the way ye know." Well, a lot of times you think everybody's got it. Y'all ever been here? Some of y'all teach school, you know, involved in education and that sort of thing, and you kind of think that the children know, but they don't know. And you're one of those children that don't know, but you don't want to ask the question because you're afraid if you ask the question, they're going to think that you're the only one there that don't know, and you really know that you don't, but you know you don't. But here's what happens. He says you should know. And then Thomas comes back in verse 5, and it says, he saith unto him, "Lord, we know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way?" Somebody would say, "Well, poor old Thomas." No, Thomas is asking the question that we all got to ask. How many of you really know the way? How many, without a doubt in your mind, if God calls you out of this world, that you know where you're going and you know how you got there? You see, the only way you get there is through Him. Amen. The only hope you have is through Him, and that's what He tells them in a little bit. When Thomas asks this question, Jesus comes back and He answers it in verse 6, and it says, "I am the way." He says, "I am the truth." He said, "I am the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me." There's no options. There's no other way. You know, it's been interesting as you watch this COVID-19 thing, you know, about ever so often there for a while they came out with a cure. Somebody would say, "Well, this will cure it, you know, and that'll cure it." There's a product called Ivermectin. We use it on the cows, and we use it on the dogs, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And the big thing came out that Ivermectin would cure COVID-19. I said, "Man, I hope so, because I got about 4 gallons of it. I'm a rich man, you know. We got the market cornered." And I knew in my mind that it probably had nothing to do with it, but there's a vet that lives in China now, and Wayne Johnson is the smartest man I know, and I knew that if anybody knew, Wayne would know because he's in China. I mean, Wayne hadn't talked in probably 4 or 5 years, but Cora got him on the internet for me somehow or another, and she said, "You know, Daddy Pete wants to know if COVID-19 can be cured by Ivermectin." He texted Cora back, or did whatever, he emailed her back and all that, and he said, "I really wish it would, but no, it has no effect on it one way or the other." Well, then we heard, you know, about the bleach stuff, you know, that President Trump thought we ought to try. So Cora, she sent word to Dr. Johnson, you know, about what was going on with the bleach, and he says there's one thing it will do, it will cure COVID-19. I said, "All right. The only thing is it's going to kill you the same time, so it ain't going to really come out like you want it to come out." So we went through all kind of things there, trying to figure out ways and options and alternatives. But when Jesus said what Jesus said was, he removed all the other options. He said, I am the only way. He said, I am the only truth. He said, I am the only life. And if you want to get there, my Father God is the only way. I don't like choices. I had a pastor friend of mine some years ago, and he was in kind of a bad situation as far as his ministry was concerned. And we were praying that God would take him and put him where God would have him to be, and give him the right church, the right circumstance, the right situation, and all that. And we just kept praying and praying. And all of a sudden, 3 churches called him within about 2 days. All 3 churches was really excited, about him coming to be their pastor. And he called, and I thought he'd be excited. He said, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I didn't want God to give me 3 choices. I wanted him to call and say, move to such and such a church," and that was the end of the story. I said, "Well, options is always good." He says, "Well, which one do you think I ought to go to?" I said, "Man, I ain't going to tell you that." But he prayed through it, and God brought him to the right spot. But there's one thing about it. When it comes to our salvation, our relationship, our fellowship with who God is, you either is or you ain't. You either with him or you're against him. You see, I'm convinced that there was somewhere in the middle. That's where everybody believes. The Bible talks about a place called heaven. Talks about a place called hell. And it does not talk about anywhere in between. Jesus tells the boys, when he tells the boys, and he tries to get it across up to them that way, it says, "If you had known me, you should have known my Father also. And from henceforth you know him and have seen him." The 2 are inseparable. But when it goes on, then it says, Philip comes back to him in verse 8, and it says, Philip says, "Lord, show us the Father, and it suffices us." When everything's not enough. Every now and then with our children, in particular our grandchildren, they'll ask me a question. And y'all understand how this works. And you give them just a great answer, I mean, just something that's deep and profound and all that sort of stuff. And you think, okay, that ought to clear it up. And then they say, "But why?" But why? And our littlest one, our littlest boy, it's great. They all call me Daddy Pete, but he said, "Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete." You ought to be an auctioneer. "Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete." I said, and then I started back and I said, "Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete, Daddy Pete." And I said, "Daddy Silas, Silas, Silas." And he said, "Don't do that." And I said, "Well, you did it. Why ain't it hard for me to do it if you do it?" And here a while back, he came up with something pretty profound, and I said, You know what he said? He said, "Because I'm only 6 and I shouldn't know. You're 64, you should." I kind of think the disciples should have known by now. Because Jesus said you hadn't been watching, you hadn't been paying attention, you hadn't been seeing. Jesus said you saw water become wine. Jesus said you saw a blind man conceive. Jesus said you saw a crippled man get up and walk. Jesus said you saw a man been in the grave for 4 days come out of it. Is that not enough? Most of y'all don't get progressive farming. It's fine because most of y'all aren't involved in farming, but you ought to get it anyway. It's just a good magazine. In the back of the Progressive Farmer, it always has these quotes. And I read the quotes before I read the articles, most of the time. And there was a quote in there, and I just thought it was mind-boggling. It was really deep. And the fellow says this. He says, "Here's the thing about rain. Some folks just get wet, and others realize where it came from." Have you ever thought about water falling out of the sky? There's this cloud up there. And you can fly through it with an airplane, and you can't knock a hole in it where it rains. We tried that way back yonder, We put pepper in it, We decided years ago, we all took up an offer over there, in Bullitt County when the drought was so bad, and we were going to seed in clouds, We was going to make them sneeze, and the water was going to come out. I think we were going to keep it. so with me, when it rains, I always stop. And I just think about this thing. Nobody can do this but my Jesus.
Amen.
Nobody can do this but my Jesus. Nobody can prepare a place for you where you'll never be sick, you'll never be sad, you'll never be tired, you'll never be lonely. I go to prepare a place for you, and I begin construction today that you prepare a place for Him. The question is this: have you done your part? Are you honoring Him in your life? Do you look forward to that day when you go to see Him? Lord, I thank you so much that you love us so much. Lord, I ask you to forgive us because you're so clear and you're so plain, even through what we're experiencing today in our churches, in our country, in our nation, Lord. There's a clear message. The message is that man ain't got this thing figured out, but you alone have to figure it out. The hope is it's not in us and it's in you. And Lord, while it strains me to understand why you went to the cross and you died for me, because I know me, Lord. If there's anybody in this building that deserves such a thing as that, it's me. But Lord, I thank you so much that no matter what happens in this life, no matter what happens in this world, one day, Lord Jesus, we'll be face to face. Father God, if there's somebody here this morning that's never begun that preparation, that's never made that change in their lives, that's never given their lives over to you as far as the control of their life, that's never really believed. Oh Lord Jesus, today might be the day. This might be the hour. This might be the moment. Give them the strength and the courage to do what they need to do. And I'm going to just thank you and I'm going to just praise you. Amen. We're going to sing.